Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, let's begin. We are continuing from Ayatul Kubra, the Supreme Sign, and we are at the 10th degree. And we've been following more or less the observations, the reflections of a traveler looking for his or her creator and engaging with different parts of creation in this journey. And the author has kind of guided us through reflections and observations as this traveler has engaged with, again, various parts of the world, right? From the clouds to the trees to the animals. And I believe the last 2 weeks we discussed as he forayed into the world of human beings, right? Investigating those instructors that come as prophets, those who come following the lineage of scholarship, and as saints as well. But would anyone like to give sort of just a brief overview, anything, or not even a brief overview, but any points that kind of stayed with them, either from last week or the weeks before? Anything that you would like to mention? I see a volunteer, so let's pass it to Zareen, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I think one thing that stayed with me about our discussion from last time was sort of, I think this was maybe near the end of our discussion, but thinking about like how do we know like who to take knowledge from, or to take I guess to serve as like sort of a guide on this journey among these like scholars and saints, and to like figure like how do we know who is actually following like the footsteps of the prophet, and how do I know like if I'm doing so myself. So I think that was kind of the point, to like find like these teachers. You need to like be honest with yourself and be sincere in your own intention to sort of go on this journey and like find these people who are these like scholarly and spiritual guides. And then I think I also remember sort of a distinction between sort of like this point of like the stopping point of the scholars and the stopping point of the saints, where with the scholars, you know, they have this is sort of like the realm of like the intellect. And I think an example was given where if you see smoke coming from a mountain, you know, you can like assume using your intellect that there is a fire there. But if you actually go to that mountain and look over and see the fire, that's sort of like this visual certainty. And that's sort of like what the like classroom of the saints, or like the guidance of the saints is supposed to represent, like more of this certainty that we experience in the footsteps of the prophet. So those are some things I remember.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you, Zareen. Anyone else that wants to share anything from previous weeks? Yeah, Teak.
I'm not sharing nothing. I think there's a question that was asked, like if you have two, people with good qualities, let's say one is such, this Sufi saint person, and one is maybe a non-Muslim, like why would we follow one over the other? And I would ask, does it have to do with, maybe this quality emerging from following the Sharia versus the good quality emerging from the fitra, right? Is there a distinction of where it comes from?
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for bringing that question. I think, so I had raised that question, right? And the question was in terms of like, is it enough for me when I choose to see if someone, is it enough that I just see, they're an honest person, have an ethical lifestyle? Is this a sign that I can also follow the path that they're following, right? So what distinguishes, because there can be many, let's say, many individuals who live ethically, right? Without necessarily even believing in God. But I guess in answering my own question, kind of put it out there. For me, the distinction is that the one who is in the prophetic footsteps, right, prophetic path, is one who is not claiming that goodness in his own name, or not claiming those qualities of honesty, trustworthiness, preserving the environment in his own name, but rather recognizing that those are qualities given, and also connecting those actions, let's say vertically, to his creator or to her creator, right? Such that when I, see a kitten and I don't just kick them, I act in a compassionate fashion. I recognize that, oh, this quality of compassion is being given to my creator such that I can come to know the source of compassion, right? I can come to know what a reflection of absolute compassion. So then all of these deeds, all actions of, I would say, one who is in the prophetic path are centered around the creator rather than the self. And I think that is the distinction that makes sense for me. But thank you for reminding us. I think it's an important question. Okay, any other? If not, we can continue maybe and see where the text takes us. Any volunteers to read it? We left off at now our traveler through the world, aware that the most important and greatest of all human perfections. Yeah, Dua, please go ahead.
Now our traveler through the world, aware that the most important and greatest of all human perfections, indeed the very source and origin of all such perfections, is the love of God that arises from belief in God and the knowledge of God, wished with all of his powers, outer and inner, to advance still farther in the strengthening of his faith and the development of his knowledge. He therefore raised his head and gazing at the heavens said to himself, "The most precious thing in the universe is life. All things are made subordinate to life. The most precious of all living beings is the animate, and the most precious of the animate is the conscious. Each century and each year, the globe is engaged in emptying and refilling itself in order to augment this most precious substance. It follows then, without doubt, that the magnificent and ornate heavens must have appropriate people and inhabitants possessing life, spirit, and consciousness. For events relating to seeing and speaking with the angels, such as the appearance of Gabriel in the presence of Muhammad and in the view of the companions, have been transmitted and related from the most ancient times. Would, then, that I could converse with the inhabitants of the heavens and learn their thoughts on this matter. For their words concerning the creator of the cosmos are that important. As he was thus thinking to himself, he suddenly heard a heavenly voice. If you wish to meet us and hearken to our lesson, then know that before all others we have believed in the articles of faith brought by means of us to the prophets, headed by the Prophet Muhammad, who brought the Quran of miraculous exposition. Then too all of the pure spirits from among us that have appeared before men have, unanimously and without exception, borne witness to the necessary existence, the unity, and the sacred attributes of the creator of this cosmos, and proclaimed this with one accord. The affinity and mutual correspondence of these countless proclamations is a guide for you as bright as the sun. Thus the traveler's light of faith shone and rose from the earth to the heavens. In brief allusion to the lesson learned by the traveler from the angels, we said in the 11th degree of the first station, there is no God but God, to whose necessary existence in unity points the unanimity of the angels that appear to human gaze, and who speak to the elect among men with their mutually corresponding and conforming messages.
Jazakallah. So now we're turning It's interesting because the text, this part of the text starts with the reflections that the most important and greatest of all human perfections is the love of God that arises from belief in God and the knowledge of God. And then goes to raise his head to what the text is saying is the heavens, right? And kind of engaging with the existence of angels. So how do we understand that? How do we relate to that? How do we make sense of that, if you will, right? I think there's a lot we can unpack here, but let me just begin by asking if there's any initial thoughts on this passage that you want to share. Yeah, go for it.
Just my initial thoughts. I mean, one, I thought it was interesting that so we went through this. I mean, we did start from the heavens, or we started from, I guess, the planets or space. Kind of, we did that was the starting point, and then we kind of narrowed down onto the globe and Earth, and we kept narrowing down into like trees, plants, and then finally we went to the humans, the prophets, the scholars, the saints, and now I thought, okay, he's looking back up again to the heavens. So just like the chaining of events, like I was like, okay, before he was still looking at the stars and the planets, and he was and like all this creation, he was still saying, look at how they proclaim the glory of God, or how they show the unity, the order. But I guess now it's something a bit more conscious he's looking for there. Like he says, life, this thing called life, is the origin of all perfection. Wait, he says, the most precious thing in the universe is life, and all things are made subordinate to it. So he's like, okay, so there must also be life there, something more conscious there. Maybe before he wasn't really looking at the consciousness of it. He was just looking at the creation aspect of it and the order aspect. Now it's like these are also, they must be conscious because life is so amazing, and there must also be life there, not just inanimate beings. So I guess it's like you are able to look back and now dig deeper for these angels, or like something conscious that's speaking of God. So I thought that was interesting. That I was trying to see, do I follow the same steps in my own life or in my own observations? Do I feel the need to look back and now interact with a conscious angel, let's say? Or does it just stay at the level of order, or it doesn't even get to that level of order? That's kind of one thought I had in my mind. Another thing I was thinking of kind of was in the beginning, he says, the very source and origin of all such perfections is the love of God that arises from belief in God and the knowledge of God. I mean, here is making a very strong statement. It's like there's no doubt to it. It's not like probably or maybe or something. It's just like it's the love of God that arises from belief in God and the knowledge of God. And I think we could just read this as it's like a nice poetic statement, or it's a nice phrase. It sounds nice, but I'm trying to think, what does love of God mean? That arises from belief in God and knowledge of God. I'm assuming up to this point, somehow the traveler found belief in God and knowledge of God through all the prophets, the saints, the scholars, and everything else. And now it's love of God. Like it moved to love of God. And somehow love of God is parallel to looking at angels in some sense, or I don't know if he makes such a parallel. So those are kind of my initial questions I had that I was wondering about.
So the question is, how do we move from belief of God, knowledge of God, to love of God, and what role does angels play in this, right? And this traveler is, in one sense, conversing with the angels, which the author notes is something that we can see is transmitted to us from the Prophet ﷺ. But what does that mean for us practically, right? In terms of conversing with the angels. And maybe not here, but elsewhere as well. Like he talks about how everything in the world we see glorifies its creator through the way that it exists, right? Like if I have a plant and it's a violet plant and like the buds start blooming into purple petals, that becomes the glorification of God through the very existence, through the very way that it demonstrates the qualities of the creator. And the author says, well, you know, it also makes sense that everywhere in existence, including the heavens, right, should have conscious beings who extend that glorification, right? But I think Brother Yusuf would like to
To quickly just add on, right?
please go ahead.
I also think it's interesting that like the degree of the prophets and then the scholars, the saints, they were below. I mean, I guess he's going degree by degree, so there's some idea of like progression. And now he doesn't just stop after you meet the saints and the scholars and the prophets. Like it keeps progressing, it keeps going. Like I guess the journey keeps going. It's like you can't just stop there. It's not enough just to be part of some group or be part of a community or be even following just the prophet or believing maybe, but it's like this progression, these degrees keep going. Like it's you're not meant to stop.
So yeah, I think that statement is important. So let's focus on that statement. So he's saying that the traveler is aware that most important and greatest of all human perfections, indeed the very source and origin of all such perfections, is the love of God. But the love of God does not happen by itself, apparently. It arises from belief in God and the knowledge of God. So yeah, unpacking this could be important in this sense, because today, when we say what is the greatest of human perfection, probably we would say, I don't know, achieving scientific knowledge, or maybe getting nice muscles, like, because depending on such things, these are the things we appreciate people for. Like if we see a person with a nice car, we admire the person. So, but the author is saying that no, none of them are the most fundamental human perfection. Instead, he says the most fundamental human perfection, and actually the source of any human perfection. So, which sounds like, if I'm going to go with the muscles, since I have a muscle man here, so it looks like if belief in God and knowledge of God is not part of my muscles, let's say, then it's, at least according to the author, it's not worth being considered as a human perfection at all. Why am I mentioning muscles? Actually, it's a thing because we just had those Olympics in Paris. So still, we are being proud of people showing off their like perfection of their body through those competitions. And this is how it had been since the antiquity. So it looks like this is something that humans consider as a perfection, something to be proud of. Author says, no, it has nothing to do with that. For a human being, the perfection can be defined, at least per his suggestion here, belief in God and knowledge of God, and actually love of God. But these two are the source of love of God. So I'm just trying to ask the question, what does love of God mean? Why should it be something admirable for me? Like, what is its utility, or what is it in the first place? So these are, I think, type of questions that maybe we can dwell on.
If I may.
So how do we understand love of God, right?
Can-
Beyond just the sort of a flowery language. What does it mean for us practically?
Can the virtual audience comment?
Any ideas?
Can the
Or
virtual
any other questions you
audience-
want to raise from the text?
Can the virtual audience
Yes,
comment?
Dua.
Oh, okay. Can everybody hear me?
Well, that is a task for everyone. I mean, so there's a lot going on in this text, which makes it difficult to summarize, right? Because the author is starting with these wider statements about the source and stemming of human perfection, right? To love of God. And then the significance of the existence and the value of specifically conscious life in the world, right? Leading to this traveler that we're following engaging directly with angels, right? Which we understand as falling under conscious life in
Can-
this world.
Can everybody hear me?
And then the angels then emphasize that they are purely declaring their belief in God, right? And that is kind of like the larger sketch of what happens in these paragraphs. But going one by one, if we start with the initial paragraphs, that will help us understand later the interaction of the reflection as well, and its relation to us, like what that means for us as well, right? And for us, so like, how do we like, do I, let's say, what's I bake a cake, right? And it's a really delicious cake, and I say, you know what, when it comes to this kind of cake, chocolate cake, like this is the epitome of perfection. Like there's a human perfection there. Or I can drive this car really, really well, and I exemplify a specific human perfection there. When I locate specific perfections of my own, let's say, do I connect them to the creator? And if so, how? How do I see them as in fact sourcing, or how do I see them as originating from love of God, right? And so in order to answer that question, again, we have to return to Brother Yusuf's question, which is, how do we understand love of God, as it's saying here, muhabbatullah? Like, how does one experience love of God, if one does, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, go for it. Oh, so if someone online would like to share a comment, please go ahead.
I don't think you can hear us. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you can
No,
hear
we
us?
can hear you.
Oh, you can hear us now. Okay, mashallah. So what I wanted to say was what my understanding of love of God is when you come to the when I come to the realization and the understanding and
If you could
witnessing
pause
of
for just a moment so that we can connect you to a nice speaker where everyone can clearly hear you, that would be nice, so that you don't speak in waste.
how about now?
One moment. No. Okay, so my suggestion would be that even though the laptop speaker works, oh. Just one moment. We can hear? Okay, so please, from the start, if you will,
Oh,
please share your
absolutely.
valuable comment with us.
Is it clear right now?
It's perfect.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So what I was saying is what comes to my mind when we think of love of God, for me, when I think of love of my creator, it's when I'm fully, or at least uh more than than I did yesterday, more realizing and witnessing the word, the manifestation of one of his characteristics. Let's say that I fully, or I think to myself that I'm more understanding of and realizing the taste of food, and whatever attributes, the beauty of being able to taste food, and I say, this is the creator's manifestation of feeding me in my belly and feeding my child who's next to me. So when I realize that, and my true enjoyment and absolute happiness at this conviction and where I trace this source to, then I have such happiness. To me, maybe the word not happiness, but inside, this true contentment and degree of being satisfied and happy. Love is so many different things, right? When you love somebody, you are happy with them, you're content with them, you're pleased with them, you are thankful for them, you're grateful. There's so many things that blend into this four-letter word love. So for me, when I think of love of God, love of the creator, you can only love your creator truly, from my perspective, or begin to love the creator when you're realizing these individual aspects and attributes of his creation that reflects his name and his act of creating. So to me, that's what love is, and I hope I get to love him more than I'm loving right now.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for that beautiful comment. And so would it be maybe correct to say, based on your comment, that the more we can connect our day-to-day experiences, day-to-day contentments, joys to the creator of that event, experience, the more we can experience then the perfection of the creator and thus increase in love and muhabbat towards him. Would that be something along the lines of what you're saying here?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, Jazakumullah khair.
Welcome.
So part of, I guess, going off what the brother said, the idea here is that in every created moment, in every created thing, entity, interaction, experience, right? That there is something there that can take me to my creator, right? And to the extent of my understanding, in the Quranic language, this aspect of creation is called angels, right? The angelic side of a created thing. So, Brother Yusuf's classic example is always the rose that a student finds in their dorm room, right? If to see the angelic side of that rose is to see not just, what it is composed of, how many petals it has, what the stem is, but to see that what it's conveying there is the love, the affections of another human being or of another person, right? So there's a message there that it contains, that it points me towards, right? So similarly in my life, let's say the angelic aspect of creation is that which points me to the message that things carry in connecting me to the creator, right? This is how I understand it. But any other thoughts on love of God? Yeah. So I'll give the mic first to the sister, because that seems to be right. And then to Kabir, even though he had the mic again, I guess. He's a guest.
Assalamualaikum. So I think what I wanted to share is how I guess the connection here that is being made between the love of God as arising from belief in God and the knowledge of God, right? So the sort of relationship between these, and the way that I took it was, I guess, in terms of also like connecting it to the idea of the angelic side or the angels of our experiences. When it comes to my love of anything, perhaps, I don't know, some new technology or a new friend that I make, right? The more I get to engage with that person, or the more that I get to know about a particular product and the sort of service that it offers me, the more sort of love that I will acquire towards it, or that will be created within me. So when it comes to my relationship with my source of existence, then, and in terms of under the light of reading the angelic side of things, then the more that I can engage with as the examples that were given, right, with the food that the brother shared, or the rose and the campus storm, the more that I'm able to kind of read those angelic sides, then the more that I'm able to become aware of the presence of my creator, kind of acknowledge the presence of the one who left the rose, and therefore kind of build a pathway to the love of it. Because I guess
the love of something is built on my interactions with that thing and my understanding and kind of like a living relationship with it. Otherwise, it's cannot be. If it is a static thing, then it kind of wilts, and it falters. So it doesn't. It's not sustainable in that sense. It has to be renewed, much like a rose in water, or something of that sort.
And you know, like sometimes this relationship of belief, knowledge, and love is so clearly exemplified in like the simplest of examples. Like I think of my niece when she was 4 or 5 years old, she went through what a lot of children go through, which is like the dinosaurs phase, where like she just extraordinarily loved dinosaurs. And it first starts with like her discovery of the existence of dinosaurs, then like her intimate knowledge of all these different kinds of dinosaurs and their names much more like memorized and everything to do with them. And the more she learns about them, the more she loves them, right? And this is just kind of like the dynamic that we share with all things in the world. Like it's just a very human dynamic, right? So it makes sense then that with my creator, the more I come to know who my creator is, the more I come to interact with his qualities through the world, through created things, because that's the only way that this is my reality. Like I think this is, as a human being, I have to interact with I'm in this physical body and I interact with the physical world, but I also am able to interact with what that physical world carries beyond its materiality, right? So the beauty is not something that's quite tangible, right? Compassion, love, wisdom, these are things that are not quite tangible, but I come to know these qualities through the physical world, if you will, not in a vacuum. So that was just like something I wanted to add as well. And yes, Brother Kadir, please, we value your comments too.
I just have a question. Like it's a thought that came to mind. Like we're going off like knowledge and belief in God, but what about the question like, does God love me as well? Like I want that question answered as well. Like I would see love as a two-way street from my creator. Like, is he taking care of everything for me? So if like someone could shed light on it, like for example, there are things that I see in my life, and if someone is loving me, I would say like they would not create it this way. So that kind of thought comes to me.
If they are loving you, what?
They wouldn't create it. They wouldn't create this event in my life. In this particular.
Okay, I see.
So, is the question clear? Like,
So the question is, how do I know my creator loves me? And we have another asking more clarifying question on that.
Yeah, because I was like, are we? I was thinking of it like two ways, because I was thinking like the first question of like, oh, does my creator love me? Sure. I guess like with the example you gave of, well, if you kind of go through these steps, naturally you will learn, or you'll see, or you'll feel the love. And then I'm thinking like, how do we show like, and then I'm like, wait, do we even do? So I just was having a two-way like thought.
So there are two, raises the question of, well, it's very clear that we're loved given our experiences, but do we show how do we demonstrate our response, right? And I mean, so that's beautiful, but let's go step by step so that all of us in this gathering can feel that conviction that we are loved as much as there are to those. Brother Yusuf, please go ahead.
So another question. So we love things, but the question is, what is it that we love? And this happens in like marriages, for example. Let's say there's this rich but old guy and a young girl, let's say, loves the guy. Like movie, just a movie scene, okay?
It doesn't happen.
In real life, it never happens. So for example, when you see this, what do you say? What does this, definitely girl loves something, but is it the person that she loves, or is it the money that she loves? Like we separate things, right? When we say, we talk about real love in certain sense. Definitely there's some love that's taking place, but is it the person that she loves, or is it the money? And you can take it the other way around as well. Like this old man is also loving this woman, but what does he love in there? Is it the person, or is it like some material that he observes in there? So love is there in this life. We do have love. Like when you see a flower over there, you love something in there. This is why we put it over there. We paid, well, it was a gift, but like somebody pays money and puts it there because we love. But what is it that we love? Love comes out of human, but what is the addressee of this love? Maybe we can start asking the question from such. So humans love things, like I loved Atik's tea, or when you see a cute baby, you love the baby. This love is a thing that's gushing out of you without you even trying to do anything with that, right? So, but what is it that I'm loving really? The reason I gave this cartoonish example is we have a proper definition of true love and incorrect love in this case, right? We say, oh, he is loving the material, or he is loving the money and whatnot, not the person. And that's why in a friendship, you would say a genuine friendship would be such and such. An ingenuine friendship, still it looks like there's some sort of a love being involved in there, but the person is loving you because of benefits that he will take out of you and whatnot, right? So love is coming out of human beings. I love things. Let's say I love doing science, we say, or I love earning money or whatever. So what is the addressee, true addressee of this love? Because he says, this is the human perfection. Like human loving God is going to be the perfection. So could it be, my feeling is that if I love the wrong address, the feeling of love is going to be a huge headache for me. The same feeling, but if I put it in an improper place, it's going to become my misery. If I put it into correct place, it's going to become my best perfection. But then the question becomes, if I'm not loving, maybe even not there, what is it that I love in this life? And does it offer me, do I take it as a curse? Or do I take it as a, oh, I'm glad I have this love in my life? Because it looks like it's the best perfection, something that should be proud of or be super happy with.
I guess maybe in response to that, I was reminded of something I read a while back where basically this book was talking about how you can't love something without perceiving some sort of immortality from it. So basically, the feeling of love comes from this idea that you think that this thing you love is going to last for a long time. So, like, for example, or maybe in the examples that you gave about like a younger woman marrying someone who's like older and like rich, maybe it's that she perceives that the old man won't last that long, but the wealth will. And yeah, and like some of these other examples, like if you see like a cute baby, like and you love the baby, like you kind of come like this feeling comes from the idea that, oh, like if this is like my child or something, like this child is gonna grow up with me, and like we're gonna have this relationship for a really long time. And then the same thing with like basically anything in existence, like the beauty of nature, like, you know, this is gonna be there for like a while. Like I expect to see this beauty for like many days or months to come. And then when it gets taken away, then that love turns into like heartbreak or pain for me. Because I thought that those things that I loved had some sort of like immortality with them. So I think we in our nature, like we tend to want to love what is eternal. And so that's why it's important, as you were saying, to turn that love to something that is eternal, which would be God.
I'm thinking with the example that Yusuf Pai gave, where the woman wants money, I don't think I would really term that as love. Like we do call it as, oh, like she loves money, but no, that's something that you want. And human beings, because of their ego, they do act in self-interest that is separate from loving something or feeling a pull towards something. The way love, is described at least is that you feel an attraction or a very natural or inherent sort of pull towards something. And we do experience that in our lives. And I think perhaps all human beings do experience love for someone, and more specifically love for certain qualities. So even if you're in a romantic relationship, it's not always about like what you're getting from it, but you genuinely do like certain qualities. For example, we see kindness and we like it, we see mercy and we like it, we see intellect and we like it. But the aspect of like, and I think I wouldn't comment on whether or not it becomes a headache, but I would say, the perfection in that is realizing that all of that can actually be attributed towards God or to God. Because that kindness that you're seeing, that intellect that you're seeing, when you realize that the absolute source of it is, God, then you can turn like your worldly loves or your worldly likes even into liking the true source. And I think that's how I would describe the love of God.
I guess like, is there kind of like a difference? Because I'm having a hard time like understanding, to be honest, what like loving God means in the context. Because like I can think of like being grateful, being extremely like appreciative throughout my day, like remembering, be like, oh, thank God that didn't happen to me, or like I'm really grateful that this didn't happen to XYZ. But I remember like that within that context, but I guess I just can't even place the two together because love is used so differently. And like, so I'm like listening to people talk and I'm like, it seems still very abstract. Like we are mentioning examples, but they're all very abstract of, yeah, I'm just thinking through it.
So let's start with Brother Yusuf, and then we'll go back to Dua and Shalom.
So, as an example, and it's a very problematic example, but as an example. So, for example, somebody says, I love America. What is America? Well, I love America's something. So America's, I don't know, culture, America's, I don't know, wealth, America's lifestyle. There are many things that makes America America. Otherwise, when we say I love America, we don't really mean the geographical continent, for example, right? So there are many components which we love, and for those reasons, we say I love America. And America is now being like a collective personality, if you like. We imagine as if a collective personality exists, and then we say I love America for that reason. But actually, what you like is maybe the street food, like these sort of things. So again, this is a very problematic example, but just to give a clue about what we mean by we see certain components in life and then we love them and then we say, oh, this is what it is. But when it comes to loving God, now we need to be careful. I mean, this is just a very problematic example just to say that we love components and by this we mean something more abstract. But when it comes to the creator, again, let's start from an example of a human being. When I say I love Qadir, brother Qadir, like I see certain qualities in this person, which are again aspects of this person, if you like. But I don't say, for example, when I say muscles, I mean, since it's a physical thing, so muscles is just a part of Qadir, which is like on the arms. But maybe for his muscles, I love him. But I mean, I can give the example of kindness, but since kindness is also a little bit, could be considered abstract. Otherwise, I see kindness in his actions. Otherwise, kindness is not something that's apparent in there. But what do I say? Rather than saying that I love Qadir's kindness, actually I say I love Qadir, because I say Qadir has a personality, is a person, an entity, and the way he manifests is through kindness, and I love kindness, hence I love Qadir. Now, when I see a cute baby, I can say I love the cute baby, or I can say that this cute baby is a manifestation of a beautiful one, actually. Because cute baby will grow up and will become not so cute eventually. But the cuteness that is being manifest in there does not belong to the baby. It is somebody else's beauty. So when I look at the beautiful or cute baby, I can say, I love you, oh my creator. You are so beautiful, I can say. How do you know he's so beautiful? Or what do I mean when I say you are so beautiful to my creator? I mean, this beautiful creature you created is demonstrating your beauty. And I fell in love with this beauty. And it's your beauty. It's not the child's cuteness. It's your beauty. And it's worthy of being loved. But if I take it as I love the child, and if something happens to the child, or even child grows up and the cuteness goes away, like sometimes your, I don't know if have you ever heard about this from your mom, but in Turkey, moms, when they get angry with the child, they would say, rather than giving birth to you, if only I gave birth to a stone. Like this sort of thing. If you make your mom so upset, this is what they would say. So, like at some point they loved you, but now they are saying they're regretting giving birth to you, saying that it would be nicer if you were a stone. So it looks like it's hurtful. Like that love is now hurting. She is so regretful. What has happened, right? So how is it going to happen that? Because otherwise it looks like for a human, it is so like the love itself potentially becomes a source of sorrow. But now the author is saying, no, love is the utmost perfection of human being if you properly love the one that is worthy of love. Otherwise, it's going to become source of sorrow to you. And which is what we are experiencing day in, day out. I am always loving the wrong things or attributing my love to wrong things, even in our like human relationships, right? So like you happen to love a human being in your life journey, but then this love becomes so painful. Why? I should ask why. Am I loving the person? Am I loving the creator? This is why I think the example with man loving the material beauty of that woman, or woman loving the money of man, or whatever stupid example you would like to take. We call it a wrong love, right? Now apply this love to your halal husband or wife and ask the same question. Am I loving this person for the person? Not necessarily material, even the kindness. Or am I loving God through this love? What is it? Whose beauty is this? Is this person is kind, right? I love kindness. Whose kindness is this? If I take it as this person's kindness and love it for that, either the person will die, or the person will start behaving mean to me one day, or since I'm getting spoiled, I will expect a little bit more kindness from the person. And if that person is not going to be able to demonstrate it anymore and will say, oh, enough. Once you hear this enough, you say, where's your kindness? Then it starts fight. This is indeed how my creator is saying that your love was wrong. It's very beautiful that those pains of love exists. Because the creator says, you were using it wrong. This is why these are wake-up slaps, if you like. The creator says, you were just wrong love. This was not proper love. You were loving for money, sort of. I mean, since it's caricaturely obvious that this is not a proper love, right? Loving someone for their money. Likewise, loving somebody for kindness is also problematic because that kindness do not belong to them. And this is why eventually that kind person is going to make you upset. And that is the wisdom of the creator, that the kindest person is going to make you upset with treating you unkindly. So, I don't know.
Jazakallah khair. You can pass it that way, but before we continue, like, and I think this those moments in which I'm awakened to the fact that this, let's say, kindness or compassion does not belong to this person, right? It rescues me from a much deeper sorrow because, let's say, you know, inevitably, either my mom will die or I will die first. And if she dies, then I know that once I am able to recognize that she isn't the source of that compassion that I experienced exclusively through her, then even upon her death, I know that this quality of compassion does not diminish from my life, right? That I won't be left without it by the true source, by the genuine source. So it rescues me from a deep sorrow there as well. But we had a comment there, and then after you changed your mind, okay, well, maybe if you change it again or refresh it, we can continue. But we have a comment by Teacher Beza, so we can move the mic, and then I think we have a comment online too.
I was gonna say, I think inherently within the human being, as was said, is the love of immortality. Sorry. The love of immortality is inherent within the human being. So, in fact, perhaps like the journey of kind of belief in God, knowledge of God, love of God, is the journey of becoming conscious that, in fact, the love of immortality is the love of God that is manifesting in my life in different sort of shapes and forms, whether it is through the compassion that I see in somebody else, or perhaps taking a photo to try to eternalize a moment, perhaps trying to use sunscreen to immortalize youth or healthy skin, whatever the case is. I think it's much, it's not like an external sort of, okay, I have to, like work hard so that my love of God sort of increases, or that I feel it. No, I think it's something already inherent within me. And it's more so just unveiling or peeling away kind of these pseudo layers of other causes that I place on top of it that take on a different manifestation. Whereas in fact, they look to immortality, which looks to the absolute, which looks to the love of God only. So in fact, anything that I do, like even if I'm doing something because I think it gives me happiness, I'm looking for eternal happiness, which is because I'm not looking for temporary happiness. I'm constantly seeking that. So that in itself is also a love of God there, if you will. If you substitute love of God with eternity or immortality, then I think they go kind of hand in hand together. And in fact, I find it very present and alive in my life, and not like, like, do I love God or what do I have to do? But rather it's very much present in my day-to-day daily life experiences or activities.
Jazakallah khair. So we have a comment in the chat box here. Would the person who wrote the comment like to read it out loud, share it out loud, or I can read it as well? And if they don't unmic or open their mic, unmute, then I will read it. Why not? It can be a word. Okay, so inshallah I will read it then. The comment reads, I think another weird question that I think gets answered every once in a while, but then I forget, is these things that seem loving, like the ever-present air for our lungs, well, God created us with the need for air, so can it really be considered as love? I mean, he made us that way. If a car had feelings towards humans, their creator, would they think we love them because we put gas on them? I mean, we created them to need gas in the first place. So the question here is, since both the need for something that I find is fulfilled in my life is given by the same source, can I still understand that as love from the creator? So the example that was given is, let's say, oh, I can say, I experience God's love because look, the air that I'm breathing, every breath reminds me that God is giving air and oxygen to my lungs, right? But then the question asker asks, well, he also gave me the need to breathe. So can this be considered love nevertheless? And we have a hand, so please go ahead. Okay, so let's go with let's go with Dua, and then we'll go with Abdurrahman, inshallah.
I think it's important to recognize that this world is a testing ground, and that eternally speaking, God, okay, how do I want to phrase this? I don't want to say God made us for heaven, but God does, want people to go to heaven, and he does, help us with that in many forms by, for example, sending prophets, giving us guidance, giving us, the fitra, akal, and not just that, but also the fact that, if you do something good, there is like tenfold sawab for it. But if you do something wrong, the punishment for it isn't as heavy. For example, the fact that if you think something good, you are rewarded for it, but if you think something bad, you aren't punished for it unless you act on it. All these things do point in the direction that, like God wants to help us go to heaven, or wants to, like give us as many rewards as, possible. And yeah, that just makes me think, that he does love us, and I'm encouraged to do, good in this life so I can get to that eternal heaven and happiness, and fulfill my eternal wants and needs.
Jazakallah khair. And maybe rephrasing that just ever slightly, right? So that I speak not from God's perspective, but from my perspective. Can we say that I know that I must be loved because I recognize that whoever gave me this need for eternal happiness, right, promises that he will fulfill it through all the reasons that you mentioned and others, right? So, but Abdurrahman, did you want to go continue?
I think it's a good question, and like it can definitely cause you to stop and like, hey, wait a second. But I think like the example, the problem is like I fill my car with gas because I need to use it. It needs to do something for me. It's a very mutual relationship. And even then I do feel like some like joy that my car has gas now, and I do feel like the car is happy in some sense to be full now. Like even then there's some feeling of it, but it's a very like mutual relationship. And in my mind, I'm thinking now of like a scenario, maybe it's like a movie where now you have a leader who like oppresses his people, but the people love the leader, and the people think they need the leader. But so this is a relationship of need. They need the leader, and maybe the leader is providing them water or something. But is that love? And obviously there, it's a human relationship. And again, you're seeking benefit, you're seeking something. But in the relationship between, let's say, a creator, an absolute one, there is no benefit I can provide this creator. There is nothing I can do for them. They have no need for me. They don't need to manipulate me or trick me or anything to get something out of me. All of that goes out of the window. Like there's none of those, like when you look at a human, it's all vile and it becomes disgusting. But when you look at a creator who doesn't need anything from you, and in fact, he's providing you with everything. And yes, I do have needs. I haven't been created 100% independent of all my needs or something. But even these needs, are they really there to torture me? Like, is it there so that, oh, I feel thirsty and this is like, haha, get oppressed, or here's some torture for you. I created you, but now I made you thirsty. I created you, but now I make you live this awful life for 60 years, 80 years. Like, be oppressed. Like if this is really, I mean, this is, no one could say, yeah, this is what life is, because all of us, we take enjoyment from life, we love life, and there are some painful parts of it, or there are parts of it that we can start thinking, oh, God doesn't love me back. I think Kadir's question is still kind of out there, like, how do I know God loves me? Because there are times that we fall into this pit of despair where like, oh, God doesn't love me, so life sucks. Then we start hating life. Actually, that's like the only time we really don't like life, if we fall into that idea that everything around me means that God doesn't love me. But really, if you kind of need a slap there, or you kind of need like someone to come be like, are you crazy? You know, just look at your life, look at everything, like rethink how you're looking at love, or what you see as love. Get rid of this imaginary concept of what love should mean in your mind, but really just look at what's actually existing, and just like observe it and look at it for what it is. And then you'll see that actually you're not being tortured like randomly or just purposely. Like there's actually so much, like when you there's so much wisdom in all the hardships you go through, or things that you realize are hardships. And if you look back on your life, you realize a lot of the hardships were because of yourself. Like you just looked at it the wrong way. You were just not reading it the right way. Like, you know, something happened which was good for you, but you just did not want it to happen. You had these expectations. You thought that some way was good for you, but actually it wasn't good for you. And it was good that you didn't go down that path. And it was good that that wall was placed in front of you. And then you see, oh, these were like not random, and this wasn't just to torture me. So coming back to that initial question of need, and is neediness like a way to realize God, like I love God or something? But it's really, I don't think we can make that kind of comparison between humans and then between God.
Jazakallah khair. And before I pass the mic to Brother Yusuf, and I would also love to know if the person online is convinced by these responses afterwards. But I guess like just on that note of like how do I make sense of these situations that don't seem like God loves me? I guess like it is in those specific situations that, at least in my life as well, there are specific idols that were present that needed to be broken, right? Maybe I loved someone, something, the idea of something, and because things did not go according to my specific expectations, I ask, why is this happening to me, or why is this occurring in this specific way? But in sometimes in that moment, and sometimes in retrospect as well, I can tell that I can see that my creator was helping me break those idols that would have taken me down a further path of despair. And in fact, reminding me of the true source of whatever I was loving or thinking to love. But Brother, please go ahead.
In general, when like briefly about the question, we are sometimes trying to intellectually resolve whether I am being loved or not. But if you don't have the feeling of love, could you arrive to any conclusion that you are being loved or not at all? Because really the measure of loving or being loved is, you know it because you love certain things. You know it by experience. So you're using the very experience of love itself. You're not saying that, oh, since he did this for me, therefore he must be loving me. We don't do it like this. We generally do it more so like how I experience the love in myself, and based on this, what is done to me, is it a manifestation of love or not? So this is why I would say, if somebody is just apparently loving you or not, you can judge that person's behavior or love to a certain extent. Just use this measure and then apply it to how you are being treated by your creator, and then see if you feel like you're being loved or not. Specifically, I'm using the word feeling here. So this is why sometimes we are trying to just make it over mathematical and trying to make equations, sum it up and whatnot, and then say, well, it doesn't add up in here, does it add up in there and whatnot? I'm not sure if this is a very proper way to handle the case. But I'll go back to Daratu's question. So yes, it can feel very abstract. What does it mean, I love God? Another important reason for that is, if I think about God as a abstract concept, for instance, again, it's going to start feeling like, if it is my intellectual conclusion, like for example, if God is my intellectual conclusion, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but definitely must exist, I say. I'm going to put a word in there, which is an important word. Allah is Fard as well. So Fard is one of the divine names. What does this mean? So Fard means his, one meaning is one, but like in English, it's mentioned as person, not as a human, but person, meaning an agent, an entity. So you are given this sense of me, like you are a person, an entity. When I say there are two, probably I'm not meaning the flesh, right? Because that flesh is going to change. Within like 6 months later, it's going to be a different set of cells in there. So what is it that I'm referring to when I say there are two? So I am meaning a self in there. So a divine name Fard also means that the creator, by me experiencing it in myself, my creator is giving me the impression that I am real, in a sense. Let me put it this way. It's a little bit of a different topic now. But when we say God, there really exists a single being. And this is why when I see a cute baby, I say there exists a being which is really creating this. It's not my imagination. It's not my intellectual conclusion. I'm not just naming an abstract being or no, a being exists, must exist, and hence the outcome. This is why we are given this sense of self, so that I can relate to. It's not that what I believe in is not a cloudy-like idea. It's a being. It's as real, as much more real than you yourself. If you are real, if you consider what yourself as a real entity, your creator is much more real than that. So this is what I should mean when I say I love God, because this cute baby is his making, and the beauty I see here belongs to him. So this, just to wrap up, this is why when I say I love a flower, I love sunrise, I love the cold breeze and whatnot, actually I should be saying, after belief in God and knowledge of God, I am realizing that actually all of them means I love you, God. Before I thought I was loving breeze. But after Iman, belief in God, and as my knowledge of God increases as follow-up for belief in God, then I say, oh, actually, I love God. I love cold breeze means I love God, actually. So this is why when you go in the morning and you get this cold breeze in the morning, normally, let's say 10 years ago, you would say, oh, what a nice breeze. Now that cold breeze will ignite love of God in you. But it's not something superficial. It's not something that you do with like forcing yourself or anything. The love was already there. 10 years ago, the love was there. But you were directing this love to the cold breeze itself. But now that Iman came into your heart and you started getting the knowledge of God, meaning breeze belongs to him, my sense of loving to breeze comes from me, everything comes from him, it's just an invitation now. In the morning, the breeze is an invitation for me that I love you. Then I respond back saying, this is so beautiful, and I love you, actually. So it's not going to take 5 minutes for you to get to this conclusion. This is why when you see like biryani at home, you went, your mom cooked it, you would immediately say, I love you, mom. You wouldn't say, I love biryani, but biryani is cooked by my mom, and my mom is loving you. This is why she cooked biryani. And actually the perfection in the biryani is coming from my mom's perfection in the artistry of cooking. Actually, therefore, what I love is my mom's perfection of artistry. I love you, mom. You wouldn't say this anymore. Immediately, the moment you see the biryani over the table, and it's a beautiful thing, but you know that it's the perfection of your mom and a demonstration of her love, immediately would say, you will go and hug your mom and say, I love you, mom.
So, but this took how many years? 20, 30 years, you know your mom for that long. You have an iman, a conviction about her love and artistry. And then you observed how perfect she cooks. Knowledge of mom came in, which now converted into love of mom. So applied to iman billah, ma'rifatullah, like belief in God, knowledge of God, and now muhabbatullah, which is a consequence of these two, which is love of God, and it is really human's perfection. This is why human is made for. If it's not done like this, it becomes the agony of human, because whatever you love, you stick to, will go away from your hand and will leave a very bitter taste in human.
I have a comment on that. I was thinking about the attributes of love. So love is like also like gravitational waves. It pulls, right? So you can tell that Allah loves you because Allah pulls you towards Him again and again. You love Allah because you get pulled towards Allah. And then how we can understand the fact that once we love something, that goes away. But is it the thing that once we love wrong things on the worldly material things, it's not true love, then it's not acting as it should be, but the true love is the eternal love that is with the Creator, which is like gravity, that only attracts, don't pull away. Do you think that's so?
So yes, then the love towards Creator is a love that just attracts and not pushes away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, do we have a question? A comment? Yeah.
So I was reading this phrase that the love of God arises from belief in God and the knowledge of God. I was thinking that for me, at least, is very difficult to define love of God. I can understand belief in God and knowledge of God as up to a certain point acts of will. Like I decide to believe and I choose up to a certain point to believe and I know, like I affirm that I know. But the love of God feels to me at least more of a gift, because I can't force myself to love God. So it feels like something that comes from above. Like, for example, when I pray, one of the things that I ask is, God helps me love you, because that is the only thing that I feel, almost like the sand in my heart, right? I can say easily that I believe and that I know that God exists, but not that the love is always there, right? So, it's just something unconditional, and it's almost like a gift. It feels like a gift, like that sort of happiness when it's almost unexpected when I see, like, for example, walking in the woods and I see a beautiful bird and it's almost like a surprise. And that love that I feel for God, it doesn't depend on me. It almost arises on a pre-verbal and irrational level. I don't know, just that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Brother Khan usually has very interesting things to say, but he is quiet and hidden. Okay, let me. So who would like to say something? Raise your hands. We have one hand here and then one hand there. Okay. No, Abdurrahman, go ahead.
I think like when I think of love of God, it is very abstract. There's no getting around it. But the way to make it more relatable for me is, and kind of what we're talking about, the beauty in a flower, or the beauty or the kindness in someone. In the same way, I'm thinking of like my life. What are the things I like, or what are the things that I long for, that I want? Just like, let's go with hunger. Like, why do I even eat food? Like I feel like I have hunger, so now I want to be satisfied. So I like being satisfied. Or let's say I want comfort, so I eat because I like comfort, or I want some joy because maybe some food, something gives me joy when I eat. So these are things I like, and that's why I eat. But then, even with food, I realize that I can eat a lot of food, and then now it flip flops, and now I get nauseous, or now I get I feel bad, or it's all those things I was searching for. The food actually backfired on me, or maybe I don't like the food I ate, or maybe it's not as good as I hoped, or all these expectations. So I'm looking for at food to give me all of these things, and sometimes I do see them. But I think the way I can take it to love of God there, like, oh, I really like comfort. I really like joy. I like to find refuge. All these things, I like to feel satisfied. I like to feel like I'm full of I'm being taken care of. So all these things I went to for food, I realized the food itself is actually not even able to provide those things for me. And I say, oh, the thing I must actually be needing, loving, let's say liking, is actually from my creator, or the one beyond that food, which would be the creator of the food, or the giver of that nutrition, the giver of that comfort that I get when I eat that food. So now I see, oh, it's not the food itself that I'm actually seeking. It's the one who is creating those things, which then takes me to to God. And there I can now say, oh, love of God means when I eat food, it's not like loving the food or the ice cream or whatever. It's like loving the joy and happiness and comfort that my creator is creating for me. And I don't even need the food for that. It's just like I can go kind of directly. So that's one way I can start understanding what love might mean.
I am also thinking, because we talked about how we can love God through sort of like the attributes that we see, but I'm also wondering if the self actually helps build that connection with God better. In terms of the fact that we have a very inherent relationship with God by virtue of the fact that we are a creation. So, like I talked about how we act in self-interest, and the self is very important to us. But at the same time, as long as, we believe in the creator and we have knowledge of the creator, we know that our existence is realized only because of him. And that sort of, I guess, like helps to build a connection there. But also, like, I was thinking in terms of like feeling loved. The things that make me feel loved are, for example, somebody knowing me or somebody understanding me. But there is, by virtue of the fact, again, that I'm a creation and he is, my master, he knows me the best, he understands me the best. There is nothing in me that is hidden from him. And that is a big source of, relief for me as well. And also gives me a feeling of connection with Allah. So I'm wondering also, maybe my self or the sense of self or my needs actually help to foster my love for God.
Thank you everyone for all these comments. We have just a few minutes left. I don't know if we're going to be able to finish. We're not finishing the topic today, and I think it's important that we maybe further continue thinking and exploring this topic of love of God, right? And then we'll progress afterwards. But any final comments?
Just a summary of what
Saving yourself for best for last.
Yeah, of course. No, I was trying to understand the text, read a few times. So what I understood from the text and summary, and especially how it relates to the remaining parts about the angels and so on and so forth. So this is the journey of a traveler. He started with questioning, what is going on, who created all this. I want to know the creator, Khaliq, of everything. He started this way, and then he studied the creation to give an to have an answer to that. So he started understanding that there must be one creator behind everything. There must be a creator behind everything. And then by further studying the creation, including himself and also the prophets, the message bearers, and so on, he started to have a better understanding of the creator, started knowing the creator. He started to see all the qualities in this the creation that are nothing but the manifestations of the qualities of the creator. So then he realized that everything is telling him about nothing but the creator. And then by further studying and studying through last week, especially when we talk about the saints and so on, he started living this understanding, and he ended up being in the presence of the creator. He said, everything around me, including myself and so on, nothing but the creator, the artwork of the creator. So whatever I see is a speech of my creator. He's speaking to me. I'm in his presence, and nothing else matters now. So he is in the mode of then worship, in the true sense, worshiping, meaning, I'm here just to witness, just be in the presence of this creator, and nothing else matters. Everything is about the creator, right? Whatever I have points me to the creator. And this state, as far as I understand, this state that I'm in his presence, he's talking to me, and all with my actions, all with my senses, I'm responding back, is the muhabbatullah, is the love of God, as far as I understand. So he's saying that the kamal, the perfection of the humanity is being in such a state of worship. That's the perfection of the humanity, which is arising from what? Knowing that there is a creator, and then starting understanding the creator, right? Iman billah, and then marfatullah, which arises from that, his presence and so on. Otherwise, making an analogy with the attractions, I'm inclined towards that, I have attraction towards that, and so on, may be misleading, at least to me. So this, the state of worship he's talking about. And then he says, if this is the perfection of the humanity, if the end goal of the journey, he says, I'm looking at the creation, the universe, right? Then I see all these qualities around me, and I know that everywhere I look, or everywhere that I cannot even look, there are these qualities and so on. So this must be true for every creature who has this consciousness just like me, right? Every creature whose end goal, whose perfection is also this state of worship by experiences the presence of the creator, if this is the end goal. Observing the artwork of the creator, enjoying the artwork of the creator, love of God, experiencing the speech of the creator towards you, and responding back. If this is the end goal, then every other places I look in the creation, there must be the creatures in such a state, worshiping God constantly,
right? And he's tying two angels. And hence he says, okay, let me talk to them because this is the state I'm trying to reach. Feeling the presence of the creator, knowing that he's, speaking to me. And this is the only thing matters. Let me talk to other such conscious creatures who may be in such state so that I will learn from them how to reach to such state. This is what I understood from the text.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for that beautiful both analysis of like how we're coming to this part of the text and how we can understand it. I found it very helpful. Inshallah, we can continue next week. Thank you all for your questions and comments and insights. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. Ameen. Thank you to the online participants as well, even though they're all gone now. Assalamu alaikum.